Hello and welcome to another episode of The Closing Track, the official podcast of another Ascending Lark where music and the Christian worldview collide, leaving a bunch of snow on the ground, the roads all iced up, and only the brave deciding that they actually want to go out and drive in that madness, because there's snow all over the ground, and I don't like driving in the snow because I almost died from it once. I almost did die from it once.
Wait, when was this?
This was 2011? Yeah, I think it might have been 2011. No, it would have been 2010. It was pre-Panfork. I was going to school from Claude, so, a 30-minute drive to Amarillo College, and had gotten a lot of heavy snow the night before, and there was a lot of black ice on the highway between Claude and Amarillo, and I was driving my dad's Explorer, which, if you know anything about a car, a Ford Explorer is like the rollover vehicle of death. Those things have an unbelievable number of rollovers. And so I am driving down the highway, and I'm not the best driver in the snow ever, but I guess I'm competent enough, but I hit a patch of black ice, completely spun around, and landed in a ditch. And where I entered the ditch, I barely missed hitting a sign, which the direction that I entered the ditch was driver's side first. So if I had hit that sign, the sign would have definitely, that collision probably would have killed me.
Scary. My car isn't exactly the best for snow travel either, but thankfully my dad's a Yankee, so he taught me how to drive in ice pretty well.
Yeah, I can drive in ice pretty well. I've had to drive my Terminex work truck, when I was working for Terminex in ice. I've had to drive my Pescon van in ice, which was far more terrifying.
But still, regardless of how good you are at driving on ice, it's best to avoid it if you can, especially with the, thousands of people out there in Amarillo who don't know how to drive in ice.
Yeah, this week is really frustrating because it's like, okay, we had our first deep freeze or whatever, which is fine and good, but it's like every single year we forget how to interact with snow and with cold weather in general. It's like, people, you don't need to go to Walmart and buy Walmart out. The apocalypse isn't coming. It's just going to be cold. Chill out.
Yeah, and the first time it froze, there wasn't even any precipitation. Like, I didn't even see frost on my car for the week.
No, there was no precipitation on the radar, which made it even funnier, but no, so we're getting to record this episode during the time we would otherwise be sitting under Pastor David's sermon on Sunday morning because we tried, we got dressed.
Yeah, we did.
We got dressed and we got on the road. And
I'm still dressed for Sunday.
Yeah, you are still dressed for Sunday. I got out of my Sunday clothes. And we started driving and we're like, no, this is a bad idea. It was still falling really hard. So we just decided to come home because, snow. I can't, when I lived in the DFW area growing up, they get snow occasionally, but they don't get it as much as we do in the Panhandle.
Yeah, I lived in Decatur for a while, and snow was definitely very, very rare.
Yeah, and when we get it here, it's one thing, but I remember growing up, oh my gosh, there's a possibility of snow. Maybe school's gonna get canceled tomorrow, and snow was like this savior for school.
Half an inch of snow on the ground, no school, yay.
Yeah, and now I'm like, snow is beautiful to look at, but dangerous, deadly, it screws everything up, it ruins all your plans. What's to love about it?
Yeah, I'll never forget the time when I opened our front door and the snow was up against our door. It didn't fall in, thankfully, but it was packed up against our door, probably close to my knee.
Yeah, it was at least 2 feet of snow barricaded up.
And then you look at the other half of the apartment, our apartment complex is, an outside thing where there's
an alley through.
Yeah, there's an alley through it, and the wind was blowing our direction, so the other side of the alley had nothing in front of their doors, and we had a lot of stuff on our doors on our side. I
remember, I got dressed for work. I climbed over the snow pile. The snow pile was taller than me, and I'm 6'2", 6'3", was taller than me. And I climb over it, and I work my way to my car, and I get in my car, and I call my boss, and I call him, and he's like, dude, why'd you call me? And I'm like, because I'm calling to see if we're coming in to work today. And he's like, dude, go back to bed.
Yeah, shouldn't you have made that call before
I
you
tried.
worked
I
your way?
tried, but he wasn't answering. So I was gonna try one more time before we left. And so I went back inside and took a shower because I was covered in snow. And yeah, so we're beginning snow season, and I hate it. My name is Austin. I am the head honcho of Another Ascending Lark. I am the one who is a pansy when it comes to cold weather. Post heat stroke bodies will make you susceptible to cold like you wouldn't believe.
And I'm Brett. Despite the fact that I've basically been born and raised in the South, I love the cold. I love weather like this. Maybe that's
I
my
did love
Yankee
it.
blood in me, though.
Okay, I did love the cold before like my heat stroke. I mean, I generally I preferred winter over summer before having my heat stroke. But after my heat stroke, oh man, cold does things to me that I have never felt before, and it sucks. I mean, I don't mind the heat. I mean, the heat still bothers me, I guess, but the cold did things to me that I never expected it to do.
The thing is, regardless, I'm going to like cold better than hot because with hot, there's only so many things you can legally do to relieve the heat. With cold, just add on an extra layer if it gets colder.
That is true. I mean, when it comes to like keeping warm, I mean, you do have the option of just stacking on a bunch of layers, but if it's, 100 degrees outside, I mean, there's only so much you can do to cool
Yeah, I mean,
yourself
even
down.
if you're running around naked, that's still not going to help, and you'll get
Actually,
sunburned
actually,
very badly.
if you run around naked, that's probably going to be a lot worse.
Yes, imagine the sunburn of
Oh,
like your stomach, which barely sees the light of day, just red all over that.
Uh, I don't even know. If you want to contact us, you can get a hold of us. You can send us an email at anotherascendinglark@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at Another Ascending Lark. Our Twitter handle is AALblog. And of course, you can visit the website anotherascendinglark.com where we post the episodes with all of the links that we mention in the show. So if you want a link to the news stories that we talk about or to the source material for our main course of each episode, you can go to the website and find the newest episode and get access to all of that and more. So yeah, we have a different kind of episode planned out. We have quite a bit of news to cover this week, and unfortunately, not very not very many albums to review this week. And then we also have, I think, going to be a really unique and interesting main course for this episode. So we got a lot of news to cover this week just because it was a really, really big news week for streaming services. If you follow the Facebook page or the Twitter handle, talked about it quite a bit on Facebook, talked about it quite a bit on Twitter. Spotify put out a blog post that generated quite a bit of controversy. The CEO, Danny Eck, wrote a post on their blog defending Spotify's model and answering some accusations that have been raised in light of the Taylor Swift thing. And so Spotify definitely dominated quite a bit of news this week, and streaming services in general just dominated the news this week. And one such report is that Bandcamp is going to be rolling out their own subscription services for their artists soon, which I love Bandcamp. I mean, I've gotten quite a bit of music from Bandcamp. There's a lot of bands that you can't really, it's just a lot more easier, I guess, to get their music on Bandcamp than it is elsewhere. My good friend Scott, he does dubstep and electronic dance music. Gave away his whole discography, like 26 something albums on Bandcamp once. But no, Bandcamp CEO Ethan Diamond announced that that the artists will be able to set their own price for the service, with music reaching premium subscribers first. Adding the comment, "It's kind of like what U2 and Apple did, except that it's music you actually want."
I want U2's music.
As I say, I want U2's music. Apparently, 30 million people wanted U2's music because they listened to the whole album all the way through. That's the number that Bono had, was that 30 million people listened to the album entirely through at least once, which that's still crazy impressive.
Yeah, it really
I mean,
is.
I think it kind of blows a hole into the whole myth that nobody wanted that album when
Yeah.
it had 30 million complete listen throughs. Even if you listened through it and you didn't like it, you at least listen to it. Yeah, Bandcamp will roll this service out where you can subscribe to artists, and these artists can get you new exclusive music first. They can offer discounts on merch and can do a bunch of other things. And it will allow some of these artists whose main thing is on Bandcamp to get a little bit of an edge when it comes to promotion and getting the word out on things like that. Because, I mean, how often do you see things for Bandcamp in your Facebook feed or just the music just looking through music stuff in general, how often does Bandcamp come up?
Honestly, I don't think I've ever seen it pop up on Facebook.
Okay, so in theory, if there was a band on Bandcamp that was their main way of getting their music out, and you subscribed to their feed or whatever, and you started paying for a subscription service to that, you would see and get notifications that, oh, hey, this band that I like that I subscribe to has put out an EP just exclusive to subscribers, and I get access to it. So I think that this is actually a pretty neat idea. It doesn't say exactly when this is going to come out, but I think this is definitely pretty positive. I've actually been digging an album that you can literally only get on Bandcamp. It's from a solo project named Spectral Lore. It's a black metal album called 3, and it's beautiful. It's so good, but that's literally the only place on the internet that you can get it is on Bandcamp. And yeah, I've definitely been digging that album quite a bit as of late. I don't know if I'm going to review it just because it's a really complicated album, but yeah, so Bandcamp's got something new coming out. Brett, what's you going to talk about?
Well, unless you just haven't been on the internet at all in the past week, you've probably already heard that the European Space Agency has landed the Rosetta spacecraft and Philae lander on a comet.
Cool.
Which is a phenomenal feat. I mean, I'm not that big of a science guy anymore. I used to really be into it. But still, this is pretty dang exciting news.
Yeah, that's definitely a pretty amazing accomplishment.
And one of the leaders of this project, Dr. Matt Taylor, is a 40-year-old British scientist, and he is a major Cannibal Corpse fan, apparently.
Which, I'm not a fan of Cannibal Corpse, but even then I was still kind of like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah, I mean, Cannibal Corpse is alright to me, but I mean, anyways, like, you can see this article on Metal Sucks.
I love Metal Sucks.
Called just
such a great website.
Simply called Dr. Matt Taylor, the dude who put a probe on a comet, is a Cannibal Corpse fan. The main picture of it is you see him with, you can see both forearms tatted up, and he's getting a tattoo on his right thigh, and there's a close-up of the tattoo, and it is a very beautiful and detailed picture of the Rosetta and Philae lander going on the comet with Rosetta written on the comet's surface. Very beautiful space backdrop. And so yeah, I mean,
I think it kind of dispels, like, I guess, the stereotypical notion that this about scientists having taste in only like classical music or being like these super stuck up elegant types.
Yeah, I mean, it also breaks a stereotype that I've seen a lot where it's like, oh, you're tatted up, oh, you're like death metal, you're probably a loser working a minimum wage job.
Yeah, you're probably really stupid and idiotic. And no, this guy's a scientist who just pulled off one of the most impressive scientific feats ever.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen a lot of, before this, I saw a lot of memes of, a guy with a shaved head. You can see a lot of tattoos on him, even going to his neck, and it says, oh, you're tatted up, you must be real successful. Then it shows him in his white lab coat, showing that he's a doctor.
Yeah.
And now I've seen this showing up that shows a picture of him, clearly prominently displaying his arm tattoos, saying, oh, you're tatted up, you must be real successful. Landed a spacecraft on a comet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that those stereotypes are finally starting to go away, because I mean, I wouldn't have pinned the guy being a fan of Cannibal Corpse of all bands.
Yeah, not at all.
So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. One more streaming related piece of news. YouTube music streaming service will launch soon. And guess what it's called?
What?
It's called YouTube.
Wow.
Where's your phone when you need it?
Hold on.
No, don't do it. Brett's phone has a personality of its own, and
just if any of y'all watch Fairy Tail the anime, you probably know the wow sound effect that happens every now and then, and that is my text alert. And a lot of times it will go off after someone has said something either awesome or awkward. And then just, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty funny when it goes off on its own at just the right time. Other than that, it's really annoying sometimes.
But awesome.
Anyway, YouTube have finally unveiled their long-simmered music streaming solution, rumored for over a year now, and it's YouTube, according to the Billboard.com article. This is actually a really confusing piece of
Yeah.
news, because I read through it and I'm like, I don't understand it, because it talks about how the there's gonna be a streaming service that's gonna be tiered with YouTube, just YouTube, and it's just gonna be another component of the general YouTube experience where it's just gonna be another feature tacked onto it. And then there's this thing called YouTube Music Key, which is the paid tier for this new streaming thing, which will be $9.99 a month, and will enable offline and ad-free listening. Which, I mean, that's what Spotify, not Spotify, Rhapsody has been doing for some time. So it's gonna be a direct competitor to Rhapsody on that regard. But it looks like there's gonna be a free component to YouTube, just kind of a Pandora sort of thing with an endless playlist of you set I want to listen to this artist and other artists like him, or this style and bands that play in this style. So it's kind of confusing. At least I couldn't make sense of it. What is undisputable, though, is that whenever this service actually does launch, it's instantly the biggest streaming service out
For
there.
sure.
It already is the biggest streaming service on the internet because, I mean, like we've talked about and joked about many other times, oh, you don't have a song? Just go YouTube it. And I'm like, that response doesn't make any sense.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but I've done it a lot.
Yeah, I've done it too. I mean, I'm not saying that I've never done it, but I'm just like, people, I have Rhapsody, which Rhapsody has everything and then some. I mean, if I can't get it on Rhapsody, there's probably a good reason why. So, yeah, so if you're a YouTube fan and you get all your music from YouTube, I guess you're going to be able to get it more soon. And if you want to drop $10 a month, you can do that and get music videos and playlists and whatever you want, because YouTube is finally entering this game, even though they've been in the game before the game was even a game.
Yep.
Unfortunately. Brett, what's your next story?
Next story, Nicki Minaj is in some pretty hot water because she has been accused that the lyric video for her Only track contains Nazi imagery.
Which, even just a casual glance of the screenshots of it, pretty dang obvious.
Yeah, at first,
like there's no missing it.
At first, when I read those lines, I was like, okay, there's probably like some little subtle thing in there that can be considered. But I'm looking at this, I'm like, no, this is very explicit. Like, one of the screenshots shows a gas mask with the word chamber over it. There are banners that are, going down that's red with a white circle and a black symbol in it. I mean, you can see a line of soldiers with red armbands on their left bicep, and I'm like, how could you miss this? She claims that it has no Nazi imagery, that's not what she intended to do, but my gosh, look at it.
Well, okay, she says that she would never condone Nazism. I think she was meaning like the philosophical political system of Nazism. But it definitely draws the fine line of using the imagery but not representing the ideology that gave rise to the imagery.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, and she says that the inspiration came from the show Metalocalypse,
which is just so funny.
Which, I mean, I'm definitely a fan of it, and at first I'm like, okay, I'm not seeing it, but one of the screenshots shows Chris Brown drawn in this style. It definitely looks Metalocalypse style. The uniform he's wearing has a lot of like way too many awards, like those bar awards on his chest, which looks like a lot of the guys in the little organization on Metalocalypse. So I'm like, okay, yes, I can definitely see the Metalocalypse inspiration, but still, the Nazism that's in there is nowhere to be found, at least in most of the episodes I've seen in Metalocalypse. And if it is, and it's just an episode I've missed, then, I mean, they're probably just joking around with it.
Yeah, I mean, Nicki Minaj did, to her credit, apologize, and reading 3 of her tweets here. I didn't come up with the concept, but I'm very sorry and take full responsibility if it has offended anyone. I never condone Nazism in my art. Both the producer and person in charge of overseeing the lyric video, one of my best friends and videographer, A. Lucas, happens to be Jewish. The artist who made the lyric video for Only was influenced on Cartoon Network by Metalocalypse and Sin City. So she did apologize, and the Anti-Defamation League, who first really kind of got the ball rolling on this and calling her out and I guess making a big deal out of this, accepted her apology and thought that her apology was sufficed. They said, "We hope that she will take further steps to educate herself and her fans about who the Nazis were and why we should never take genocide or the Holocaust lightly." So I do give her credit for
Yeah,
apologizing. I mean, I definitely give her credit for apologizing instead of, saying, we all are just stupid or, you just don't understand what I'm trying to go for. She did apologize, which I think is a good thing. But, whenever when you sow a bunch of controversy and just being provocative, eventually you're going to go too far. And while you could argue that she's gone too far plenty of times,
oh yeah.
this is definitely going even further than what she's already gone beyond before.
And given how far she went with this, I'm actually surprised that there isn't some long, drawn out feud going on. Because with something like this, normally with the way the media is blowing everything up, I mean, people wouldn't come to amends this quickly normally. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't remember the last time I've seen something like this.
I think she realized that even if she was making the distinction between Nazism as a political ideology versus the historical imagery and iconography related to Nazism, that not everybody does that. I mean, I certainly did it when I first saw it. I mean, I immediately saw a tacit endorsement of Nazism looking at the screenshots.
For sure.
So I think she understood that not everybody saw it the same way that she did, and those who didn't see it the way she did was offended by it. And so I do give her credit for apologizing for it. Now, if only she would apologize for her scary as all get out performance in the Grammys a couple years ago.
I was wondering when you were going to bring
Oh
that up.
my gosh. Okay, me and my brother, the intern at the camp that must not be named, were watching the Grammys. What was that? 2011, 2012?
I want to say, yeah, I want to say 12 for
I
some
want to say
reason.
12. Yeah, I think it was 12. And we were watching Nicki Minaj perform, and neither of us are Nicki Minaj fans, not even close. And we see her performance for I can't remember the song, and it was disturbing as all get out. The moment where a choir comes out and starts singing. Oh gosh, I would
Oh,
forget.
come Emmanuel.
Yes, O Come Emmanuel. I was like, okay, this has gotten scary as crap real quick. I mean, and
And
I'm a black metal fan, and even I thought, okay, this is pretty bad. Like,
yeah, the thing is with a lot of black metal bands that are, openly satanic, at least for their imagery, you expect that, but Nicki Minaj, you
yeah,
don't expect that at all.
yeah, at the Grammys of all places. I mean, the Grammys are, not necessarily been a fan of, safe and family friendly. But this was definitely a step way too far, and she got quite a bit of flack for it in the coming days. So, one more, I guess, real quick story. If you're an Usher fan, you can go to Walmart and buy Honey Nut Cheerios, and if you buy the specially marked boxes, you can get his new song "Clueless" included in the cereal box.
That's just weird.
It's just weird. It's a pretty. I mean, he's done it before. He did it earlier this year for a commercial, with a commercial featuring his song "She Came to Give It to You," but now he's doing it again with the song "Clueless," and It's not for sure whether or not this song is going to appear on his 8th studio album or if this is a Cheerios only, one-time promotion deal. But back in the day when you would get, something in a cereal box if you bought the right cereal box. I guess now we're doing music in cereal
Yeah, I mean,
boxes.
it's been a long time, I think, since there's been an actual cereal box prize that was, worth
Worth it.
anything.
Right?
And I mean, I'm not that big a fan of Usher. I mean, I do think he's a good musician, but I mean, this is definitely a prize worth buying a box of cereal for.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is actually a pretty good idea. I mean, I think it's weird, but I think as far as, cross promotion marketing, this is actually a pretty interesting idea.
Yeah, I mean, and someone like Usher doing an experiment like this, I mean, even if it flops, he's Usher. He's not going to have any damage done to his career or his money. I mean, he's going to be fine.
Yeah, he's going to be fine. More news this week than we normally cover, especially given last week we didn't really cover any news whatsoever. Let's go into reviews. We only have 2 reviews planned out for today. One of them is a rewind from very, very early in 2014, and then the other one is the new Foo Fighters album. But first, Brett and I are going to tackle An album that we have both given plenty of listens and spins
Oh
to
yeah.
throughout the year. Has definitely been one of it may be the most like my most listened to album the whole entire year. It's from the band Anubis Gate, and the album is called Horizons. It is the sixth release of the European. I can't remember what nation they are.
I think
Progress.
it's Sweden.
It's possible. Yeah, probably Sweden. Progressive metal band, and the more I listen to this, the more I love it, and that's definitely how it's been the whole year. Where each listen, I notice something I didn't notice before. It is definitely progressive metal, but I think one of their biggest strengths, as far as songwriting goes, is that the songwriting is phenomenal.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
this is some of the best written progressive metal I have ever heard. It is lyrically very compelling, very well written lyrically. And even as far as being progressive metal, when you hear progressive metal, you don't normally think like accessible. Uh, Usually it's pretty lofty, pretty nerdy, pretty high up there. And this album does have moments of that. But for the most part, the songwriting structure and the way that they write their songs, this is pretty accessible for progressive metal. I don't think you have to be a big progressive metal fan to listen to this and to be able to appreciate it. Even in some of the longer songs, there's it's just very accessible, even and very well written. Where the progressive part comes in is that these guys change keys like a guitarist changes chords.
Oh yeah. Like especially, I mean, one thing that's definitely very prevalent is in Never Like This a Dream, where they change not only lyrics but keys for the final iteration of the chorus.
Oh, well, Airways has. I lost count of how many key changes are in
Yeah.
Airways. I mean, that song changes keys at least 15 times. But it doesn't feel awkward when they do it. They know music theory well enough that they know where to change keys and they know what to change to make it sound like it's natural and that it flows well, even though there's some pretty crazy music theory going on behind the scenes. It's not so complicated that it's unattractive. If anything, this album is like a pretty solid entry into the melodic progressive metal sound and style. It's not like, and there's no death growls, there's no screaming. It's not a hard album per se, but it is very melodic, which explains why there's 20,000, 100 million key changes in it.
Yeah.
This album opens with Destined to Remember, which Destined to Remember is probably one of my favorites on the album. It's got a real rousing chorus. I would forget the name of the vocalist, but he is very skilled, very has a very wide range vocally, very much in the classic power metal, progressive metal, hair metal tradition, a la Michael Sweet, a la Theocracy's Matt Smith, a la, you can fill in the blank. If you listen to him, you'll probably think of a couple different guys where the dude sounds like, but yeah, he sounds distinctly like his own. And then after Destined to Remember, you have Never Like This a Dream, which is the anchor track to a longer track at the end of the album, where they develop they develop the song even more. Hear My Call is probably the hardest song on the album. It's got a real strong verse, also 20 million key changes.
I mean, it's definitely one of my favorite songs ever.
Yeah,
right now.
the first four songs on this album are outstanding. They are some amazing progressive metal.
And definitely one of my favorite aspects of Never Like This. It's probably unintentional, but if you listen to that song and if you've watched Sword Art Online, the story behind that's in the lyrics of Never Like This a Dream sounds a lot like Sword Art Online.
Yeah, we actually theorized if the longer track "A Dream Within the Dream" was actually based off the film Inception. Reading the lyrics further, we kind of came to the conclusion that's not that interpretation doesn't work real well. But the lyrics are written unbelievably well. They're singable, they're understandable, they're attractive. I mean, the songwriting on this album is really what sells this album and makes it so well. Breach of Faith has a real strong piano line throughout the whole entire album. is pretty straightforward as far as the songwriting structure goes. Has a little bit of a noodly guitar solo segment in the bridge, but other than that, Breach of Faith is one of my favorites, and then the title track Horizons is probably the most elaborate song structure on the album. Uh, yeah, I mean, outstanding title track. As a whole, I don't like the album though. I don't like it as an album. I like it for the songs that are on the album, if that makes sense.
Explain.
Like, as an album, I don't. I mean, the two songs that I don't necessarily. They're not bad songs, but I just usually tend to skip them are Revolution Come Undone and Mindlessness. And it also has a closing track tacked on to the end of it after A Dream Within a Dream called Erasure, which really ends the album kind of on a poor note because you have A Dream Within a Dream, which ends on this massive climactic note, and then Erasure comes and it just doesn't belong there.
Yeah, I thought it was weird. I mean, maybe if they put Erasure somewhere else in the album, it
Yeah,
might work better. But A Dream Within a Dream is a great closing track.
That's how
it's like, what, 13 minutes long?
10 and a
like
half.
10 and a half. And I mean, it sort of ties up themes that are already addressed in Never Like This. It just makes sense to end.
Yeah, but it doesn't. But I mean, I think the songs are so strong that they stand apart by themselves in that you don't have to listen to the whole album to understand and appreciate each song. Each song is so incredibly well written that it totally stands on its own by itself, and it doesn't. I don't know. It's a solid release. Don't get me wrong. It's a solid release. Excuse me, beer burp. Random beer burp. But I don't know what I'm trying to say. I guess is that it's so good that I guess it transcends like being an album. That the songs are so solid on it that you don't have to listen to it as an album. You can listen to the songs individually, and it'll still be just as good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can understand that.
So I would pin this at a 9. Only because there are a couple of songs on here that are weaker than the others, and it's got a little bit of a fumble for the closing. So I pin this at a 9, Brett.
Yeah, I'd probably say about a 9 as well.
Okay. Yeah, if you're a progressive metal fan, Anubis Gate, Horizons, you can't miss that one. You cannot miss this album this year.
The thing is, they've had multiple previous releases. I haven't listened to a lot of it, mainly because this album is so good.
Yeah, this album, not once has this album been stale. I mean, this is easily my most listened to album of 2014 just because of how good it is.
I mean, I can listen to Never Like This on repeat for hours and not get tired of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of the best releases of the year. Definitely thankful to have stumbled across it. It's an outstanding release. Brett, you can have your fun for this one.
All right, this week, the Foo Fighters released their album Sonic Highways. Now, a bit of background, I think we've already addressed this in previous episodes, but this particular album has been recorded. Each song, there's 8 of them, has been recorded in a separate city in America, and there is a still yet to be released documentary series about the making.
No, it's been released.
Oh, it's been released.
Yeah, it was on HBO each week. Each week leading up to the album's release, they did an episode that talked about a song, so it's been on for a while.
But yeah, never mind then. But so it's definitely a very interesting concept. And I was kind of excited for this. I am a pretty big Foo Fighters fan, and I mean anything Foo Fighters does, I want to listen to it. And this idea is very unique. I mean, it's a good idea what they did, but they really didn't deliver on this. I mean, I understand this is more of, from what I've heard, a soundtrack to the documentary, but even still, I mean, it just does not deliver. Dave Grohl didn't write any of the lyrics until they arrived in the city, which, okay, that can still work. I understand where you're coming from, but I think this album mainly suffers from not having enough time dedicated to it. I mean, like, if they would have had a bit more time to spend in each city and develop it a bit more, then possibly this would have worked out better. I mean, Something from Nothing, the first track, that's been the main one playing on the radio a lot, and I mean, it's decent. The bass line has a nice groove to it, but really the main thing that seems off for me is that one of the main riffs is pretty much the riff from Holy Diver. I mean, the second half of the riff from Holy Diver is missing, but still, it's a Holy Diver. So I don't know if they intentionally ripped that or if it's just something that happened.
They wouldn't have to intentionally riff that. The riff is like one of the most basic riffs of all time.
Yeah, understandable. And I mean, and they didn't do it as well as Ryan James Dio did for the riff. I mean, in the Dio version and the dang it, what is that name of that other band? They're Christians. They did Holy Diver, a cover of it. They also had
Are you thinking of Killswitch Engage?
yeah, Killswitch Engage.
Well, I don't know if I'd call them a Christian band, but
well, I mean, they have. I said they have Christian lyrics and stuff. But
they do.
anyways,
Yes, but
anyways, the arrangement of that riff is definitely done, more complex, definitely making it work better. But this, it's just very simple. The one guitar doing that over and over again. And the next track, Feast and the Famine, which, I mean, a lot of these cities, it makes sense where they go: Chicago, Nashville, Austin, LA, New Orleans, Seattle, New York. But this one is Arlington, Virginia. I'm like, okay, that seems kind of random.
Okay, I'll briefly interject that they're recording at various famous studios. So it's it's a tour around the country, but it's also, from what I've been told, just a kind of experience about recording in some of the greatest studios found in America. So
okay, fair enough. But this album, this song, like a lot of other songs on the album, suffers from an incredibly repetitive chorus. Like the chorus, I don't remember if it says anything except for the Feast and the Famine over and over again.
It doesn't.
And I mean, I'm just like, ugh. And then probably the only other song really I think that was decent was What Did I Do, God Is My Witness. I mean,
that probably was my favorite song on the track, just because it has Gary Clark Jr. contributing guitar work to it.
Yeah, and I mean, favorite's kind of a strong word. It's the least horrible song on this album. And then, it goes to some other songs. And the last one, I Am a River, which on Rhapsody, the review of it really played it up as being a good 7-minute song. But most of it is just Dave Grohl saying, I am a river over and over and over again. I'm just like,
I'm like, is this all you have to say, dude? I mean, come on, you've written some pretty poignant stuff before. Yeah, this is all you have to say.
I mean, Foo Fighters is a great band, and this was definitely a disappointment. I mean, the album wasn't, horrible, but it definitely screamed of mediocrity, and it definitely screamed unfinished, and it needed more time and more development, definitely. I mean, a lot of these sounded like beta tests, if that makes much sense.
No, I get it. So what would you pin it at?
I'd pin it at 6.5.
That's generous.
Yeah, it is generous. I mean, it's mediocre. It's not, horrible. But compared to the rest of Foo Fighters' discography, this is definitely a really low point.
Yeah, I'm not going to review this because I had a talk with two friends on Facebook last night who are more into Foo Fighters than I am. I mean, I'm a Foo Fighters fan, but they're a little bit more into their history and to what the documentary than I am. And I had understood this album as being like the focal point and the documentary being like a grandiose bonus feature to it. And I've been told that that's actually not the case, that the documentary and the album are on more equal foundational grounding, where the documentary isn't the moon revolving around the album, nor is the album the moon revolving around the documentary. That they're somehow in orbit with each other, which I haven't seen the documentary, so in light of that, I'm not going to review it and give really my comments on it, because I think that would change the lens that I would look at the album and the way I would evaluate it. So I'm going to let Brett's record stand for that.
Although one thing I will say, the album artwork is pretty cool.
Yeah, the album artwork was pretty nice.
In the middle of it, there is this building which basically is shaped like the infinity symbol, and you can see, along the edge is basically a big circle that's sort of a mesh of different cities. You can see a Space Needle from Seattle. You can see the Empire State Building and the Statue of Liberty from New York. But one thing I thought was weird, I mean, you see the reflection pool on the Washington Monument from Washington, D.C., but they didn't record in Washington, D.C.
Huh.
So
That's interesting.
I mean, maybe that's sort of a flash to Arlington, Virginia, since DC is pretty much like right there by Virginia. But I don't know. I just thought that was a weird decision.
Well, cool. 6.5 then. If I get the chance to get access to the documentaries and watch them, then I might review this later down the road. But I think I'll just let Brett's opinion stand. Brett, what we got coming out next week?
Next week we have Steve Taylor and the Perfect Foils
I am
Goliath.
so excited for that. Steve Taylor is probably the greatest, like, in the Christian market, Christian artist of all time. I mean, he is like extremely controversial, outstanding musician, very forward-minded thinker. I'm so excited for Steve Taylor's new album.
And then the Digital Age has Rehearsals Volume 2 coming out.
Oh my gosh, I'm so I'm excited for that too. Did you ever listen to the Digital Age cover of All the Poor and Powerless? You probably I may have let you listen to it once. Yeah, so All Sons and Daughters did All the Poor and Powerless. And then the Digital Age, which the Digital Age is the members of the David Crowder band minus David Crowder with a new lead vocalist. And in the first Rehearsals EP they did a cover of All Sons and Daughters, All the Poor and Powerless, which is, one of All Sons' staple songs. Completely, absolutely blew away the original. I mean, oh my gosh,
that's saying something.
No, there's no comparison. I mean, not that the original was bad by any means, but their rendition of it blew it out of the water. I still get chills down my spine every time I get to the bridge of the Digital Age version of it. But yeah, I'm definitely excited for that one.
Depeche Mode has Live in Berlin coming out.
You can have that one.
I'll probably stick with the next one, In This Moment's Black Widow.
You can have that.
And the next two albums on this list are definitely the ones that I am really, really excited for. Nickelback has No Fixed Address coming out, and One Direction has 4 coming out.
You can definitely have both of those. I mean,
I'm not going to listen to those.
You're not?
Although I will say one of Nickelback's newer songs, Edge of Revolution, has been playing on the radio a lot, and it's decent.
You might one of us might cover Nickelback's album just for the sake of.
Maybe I will. Just see.
I might.
But One Direction is not going to be reviewed by me.
Well, I still have to review Project 86, Citizen Saints. Because of the way work was this week, I wasn't able to listen to as much new music, and so I was barely able to get a couple of listens into the Foo Fighters album. So I still got 2 albums from this past week to cover, so we'll just see. But yeah, the review season, unlike the past couple of years, is going to continue through December. So there's going to be quite a bit of big name releases. Like AC/DC has an album coming out like one of the first weeks of December. So unlike most years where usually the release season kind of drops off towards the end of November, it's going to continue into December for this year. So we'll have plenty of new music to cover all through the month of December. So yeah. Brett, so what are we going to talk about today? Brett, this was your idea, and I think it was a great idea. So what are we going to talk about this week?
Well, just to give some background, last week we went to the this community group at our church for, musicians and music appreciators, and we got this handout of this excerpt from Tim Keller's book. It was good. It's from chapter 3, and it's entitled Why We Need Artists. And when it's Tim Keller...
It's Tim
Keller. You listen
to
Tim Keller.
Tim Keller is basically the modern C.S. Lewis. Only he hasn't written Narnia.
Yet.
Yet.
But I mean, just a general overview. It's basically explaining why the church needs artists. And it talks about, it says, while we have artists because they have the ability to tell the greater, or to see the greater reality, we need artists because we can't understand truth without it. You see, reason tells me about the truth, but I really cannot grasp what it means. I can't understand it without art.
And I found that to be a pretty, provocative statement when I first read it. I was like, what? I mean, we're both pretty opinionated on our view on art and artists and its relationship to truth. But when Tim Keller, pretty much boldly says that you can't understand truth without art, I was like, what? That's a pretty bold statement to make.
But I do think it makes a lot of sense, has a lot of credence to it.
Yeah. Later in the article, he first points to Jonathan Edwards, and Jonathan Edwards' famous sermon, "Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God." Have you ever read that sermon?
I actually haven't.
I read that sermon when I was in high school, and it's pretty like hard to read as far as as far as language goes, but it's a very very powerful sermon.
Yeah, just this one little snippet he quotes is definitely really powerful.
Are you gonna read it, or do you want me to read it?
I'll go ahead and read it.
Okay.
Your wickedness makes you, as it were, heavy as lead, and to tend downwards with great weight and pressure towards hell. And if God should let you go, you would immediately sink and swiftly descend and plunge into the bottomless gulf. And your healthy constitution and your own care and prudence and best contrivance and all your righteousness would have no more influence to uphold you and keep you out of hell than a spider's web would have to stop a falling rock.
Yeah, that's an excerpt from Edward's sermon, or Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. And Keller comments after that, now as soon as he said that, what has he done? He's used imagination, moving from truth into the area of visualization. As a result, you have a clearer sense of what he means. Even if you don't agree with the concept, you begin to realize what is going on. You may not have understood what he meant until he crossed over into another mode, until he put it in the form of a sense experience and showed you what it looked and felt like. The sensual experience allows the sensual expression of the truth allows you to hear the truth, to see the truth, to taste it, touch it, and smell it. And I think as he continues further along in this excerpt, that he takes this really provocative point that he starts out with, and using this point from Edwards, or this quote from Edwards, I think he begins to demonstrate that there's actually a really powerful idea at play here than I think we're willing to acknowledge or give credit for. Especially, he says in an earlier paragraph that he quotes Edwards, says, unless you use imagination, unless you take a truth and imagine it, which of course is art, you don't know what it means. Ooh. Which, at first I read that and I'm like, I don't necessarily know if that's true, because I have understood and grasped the meaning of many things without having it expressed in the way of art. I mean, you're an English major and you have grasped quite a bit about the English language.
Yeah.
But has every bit of it, of the truth of the English language, been communicated and understood through art?
I mean, not necessarily. In my history of the English language class, which, if you're talking about history, it's definitely not that artistic. I mean, my professor did have us listen to some songs, like when talking about the Viking invasions, he had us listen to, oh my gosh.
You would forget the name of it.
Yes, I would. It's
Immigrant Song.
Yeah, Immigrant Song. And, I mean, he did do that to kind of help us out, and he did a lot of that in his various classes, but when talking about various things, like the church coming to England and giving a lot of its Latin words to English, the Norman invasion giving a lot of French words to English, that's not really artistic, but I can understand it.
You didn't need art to understand that truth, is what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Okay. And I would say the same is for me as well. So he says that, unless you take a truth and image it, and give an artistic expression to it, you don't know what it means. So epistemologically, I think this raises like a really big epistemological question. And for those of you who don't know what epistemology is philosophy minor.
Brain farting.
Epistemology is the field of philosophy that deals with knowledge. It deals with how we know and understand things.
Dang it.
You can go brush up, man.
I haven't been in a philosophy class in like 2 years.
I haven't been in a philosophy class in like 3 years. But I think, though, even though I don't necessarily know if I can agree with that, like when he gives this quote from Edwards, I mean, it does impact you differently.
Like if you just say your wickedness makes it to where your righteousness isn't strong enough, so your righteousness can't bring you to heaven. That is sort of conveying the same thing, but without this backdrop.
Without this beautiful visual, like this actually horrifying visualization of it. I don't know, it just doesn't punch you as hard.
I mean, especially the last part talking about a spider's web trying to hold up a falling rock. I mean, that's a powerful imagery. I mean, if you think about dropping a rock into a spider's web, there's no resistance at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing stopping it. It's not, for however strong the spider thinks the web might be, when that rock hits, that web is done.
Yeah, I mean, it's powerless against the rock.
Yeah, the broader quote comes from one point in the sermon where he states, "Your righteousness cannot keep you out of hell," and that's the truth, and that is a truth. And then he develops the truth with that example. I mean, I read that, your righteousness cannot keep you out of hell, and I understood it. But then when you develop the point of it, you kind of, I guess, or as Keller says, you hear the truth, you see the truth, you taste it, you touch it, you smell it, you understand it in a more sensory way because you've got this visual image. I mean, this is really an interesting way of looking at the relationship of why the church needs artists, which I gotta say, it's sad that we even have to ask this question.
Yeah, it really is, especially given you look back to the Renaissance, and my gosh, the church produced so much beautiful art.
Yeah, I mean,
now it's kind of
now it's like, oh, you're an artist. You need to have some sort of spiritual justification for your work. The fact that you make art, unless it's got Jesus every other word, or it's a picture of Jesus hanging on the cross, or whatever. That it's sad that we have to answer, or that this discussion even has to happen, because it should be self-evident that the church needs artists, and it should be self-evident. And I think Keller brings this point out really well. Is that in the broader artistic sphere at the moment, subjectivity and relativism dominates the way we see art. I mean, and the way we listen to music. I mean, how many times have we been told that our stance that Theocracy is an extremely talented and extremely creative band is just our personal taste and opinion,
yeah, I mean,
and not demonstrably true.
It's really, really a shame. I mean, and the thing is, just sort of going to a bit of my rant, calling art good and saying that you like art are completely different things. Like, perfect example. I really don't like country that much, which is weird given where I live. I just don't like it. But I can listen to country songs and appreciate it. I can listen to a good country song and say, this guy has talent. He knows what he's doing. He's making good and beautiful music. I just don't like it that much.
Yeah, I mean, that was something I wrote on back in 2013, was that there's an inherent difference between saying that we like something versus saying that something is good. And I think that we have really equivocated the two in saying that something is good because I like it, or I like something, therefore it's good.
Yes, I mean, a lot of people will downplay Theocracy because, like, oh, I don't like metal. It's like, so what? I mean, just
you may not like it, but try to listen to Mirror of Souls and tell me that that's not a masterpiece.
Or at least read the lyrics. The lyrics read like an expert epic poem. I mean, it is so good.
Coming from the English major.
Yes, coming from the English major, it is an epic poem.
A modern epic poem.
Yes, its stanzas are in perfect rhythm. It has a fantastic shifting rhyme scheme. I mean, just dissecting the lyrics, my gosh, there's so much to dive into.
Yeah, but we've lost this real I think we are not having the Christian worldview fully integrate into all the aspects of our lives, because the Christian worldview is based on this idea of objective truth, that there is objective truth that can be known, and that applies to the arts as well, which is an extremely unpopular idea to suggest that there is objective truth in the arts. But I think Keller hits on that point, even if he's not explicitly trying to make that point, that we need artists because the church needs artists because the Christian worldview is one that communicates truth. And if we're going to communicate something through the arts, it's going to be objective truth that reflects the Christian worldview. And I think that that's something that we haven't really quite linked together yet, is that the Christian worldview's understanding of truth applies just as much to artistic expression as it does everywhere else. He goes on to make another point that the church needs artists to assist the body in understanding truth, but just as importantly, the church needs artists to equip the church to praise God. We cannot praise God without art. Which I read that and I was like, oh, that's going to step on a lot of people's toes.
I mean, even the very basic and slightly annoying phrase, God is good all the time, God is good, that's a form of art. It's a form of a play on words.
Mm-hmm. That is a form of a play on words. I read through this, and we both had to read through this excerpt like 20 million times
Yeah,
just to make sure we understood what he was saying. But whenever we do music in church, we are doing a form of art to praise God. And
definitely.
yeah, I mean, you read the Psalms, and when you read in the Psalms how many times that the psalmist commands people to worship God through music, he's commanding that we worship God through artistic expression, which is why both of us come down hard on bad worship, because you don't get to throw away the artistic expression element of it just because it's worship.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, just from personal experience, I've listened to a lot of worship bands that will sing a song and then kill it by singing the chorus over and over again for 7 minutes. And I mean, a lot of times you almost feel guilty for being distracted, for just being like, okay,
or for being
whatever.
critical, like for
Yeah,
being critical about a worship song.
because they're like, well, you're not in the right mode. You need to be in the right worshipful mode. You can't, I mean, it shouldn't matter, but it does
Yeah,
matter.
that's the thing, is that it does matter.
I mean, if we're saying you are everything, you are everything, you are everything over and over and over
I
again, it's like,
honestly,
okay, my gosh, I have this point drilled in my head already. Can we please move on to something else? And it's incredibly distracting.
yeah, I mean, it's we don't. I feel guilty about this all the time. I mean, the working at the camp that must not be named, we had some great worship bands come through, and we had some worship bands come through that weren't all that great. And everybody else around you is in this mode of blissful worship, which there are moments, there are plenty of moments when blissful worship, where you're focusing on God and praising Him for who He is. I mean, I personally experienced that, but
Like the first time we heard When God Speaks.
oh my gosh, yeah. To brag on our friends Overseer, who, by the way, congratulations to Graham and now Bethany Jones for tying the knot yesterday.
Woo woo.
Congratulations, you two. When we first heard one of the bands at the camp that must not be named, Overseer, play their original track, When God Speaks, excellently written. I mean, outstandingly written. Breaks the mold of a traditional worship song. It's an outstanding artistic expression, but it's communicating truth, and because we are experiencing that truth in the artistic expression, we are able to praise God as a result of it. And I mean, I think that that's kind of, I guess that goes back to answering Keller's question that we cannot praise God without art.
And I mean, also sort of a little bit of a more less serious take on this. I mean, we've all heard the song "I Can Sing of Your Love Forever," which I mean, it's a good song.
Oh, Delirious. I miss Delirious.
I mean, it's a good song, yeah, but even something like that can be killed depending on its presentation. And going to another Tim Hawkins,
Oh gosh.
he talks about in one of his comedy bits, corporate worship singing, "I can sing of your love forever." Then 5 minutes later, "Will we sing of his love forever?"
Oh, I love Mr. Hawkins. Keller goes on in the article to write, therefore, one of the reasons we don't praise very well is because we are limited in how we bring forth what is in our hearts and minds. Which I think when I read that, that was a light bulb for me in why I get so, I don't know, worked up about bad worship, is because there's some really deep truths that we're talking about, but the vehicle that we are expressing those truth in is woefully inadequate and doesn't allow for the fuller expression of that truth to be experienced. Art is a natural vehicle for pouring out the praises we long to give to God. Another quote from Keller in the article. I mean, I think that he's hitting on something that I've been trying to wrestle with myself for some time, because for the longest time I've been, pretty adamant that if you're going to do worship, you need to do it well.
Amen.
That just because you want to sing songs to God, that's great that you want to lead others to worship God, but that doesn't give you an excuse to kind of have it as a halfway approach and to not give your best of your artistic expression to your task. I mean, worship, if anything, is really dominated by the utilitarianism that we are both so adamantly against, where the music is, to quote Mark Hall from Casting Crowns, is the plate on which the meat, which is the lyrics, is served on. And that's not true. That's a terrible way of understanding art. And I think Keller breaks down in this really long paragraph, which, I mean, we'll put this up on the website after the episode is published so you can read it for yourself, that the quality of the art is a direct correlation to the quality of the praise.
Definitely.
And that's such a provocative concept, but it shouldn't be.
I mean, going back to Mirror of Souls, you can't listen to that song without reflecting on the glory of God and how incredible it is that he saves us, and just not how incredible it is that he saves us, but how incredible how he saves us.
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh.
I mean, the truths that Matt Smith brings out in Mirror of Souls have been talked about for 2,000 years in various places, and other songs have done it out. But no other song has brought out the majesty of those truths so well as Mirror of Souls, because of the way they're expressed.
I mean, if you haven't listened to this, and if you have no desire to listen, at least look up the lyrics.
Oh my gosh,
please,
yes.
at least look up the lyrics.
Yeah, read the lyrics for your devotion time. I mean, yeah, just skip out on a Bible reading once and just go read the lyrics to Mirror of Souls. If you don't like metal, and there's no screaming in this song, it's just an outstanding vocalist who can sing circles around everybody else, just at least read the lyrics. And then try to say with a straight face that that wasn't a powerful expression of truth through an excellent expression of art. And going back to to continue with Mirror of Souls, we're going to have an episode on Mirror of Souls at some point down the road.
Awesome.
We definitely have to do an episode on Mirror of Souls. Keller, closing out the excerpt, says that the church needs artists because without art we cannot reach the world. The simple fact is that the imagination gets you, even when your reason is completely against the idea of God. That's a powerful argument.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend of mine who's an atheist for several years. We were getting dinner with a couple friends at Denny's one time at the end of a semester, and I was talking with him or whatever, and he was a pretty hardcore new atheist at the time, rolling to Dawkins and Hitchens and the new atheist crowd. But he openly told me that when he listens to Handel and to Bach, he is convinced that there is a God. It's hard for him to deny that there's a God when he listens to Handel, when he listens to the great classical composers and the beauty that they bring, because his imagination was being captivated, and this imagination communicates indefinable but inescapable truth, to quote Arthur Danto. And that's something that another reason why we're pretty hard on worship, because when your imagination is stimulated by worship, or by the quality of worship, I mean, again, it brings out truth that you may not have otherwise experienced, because the way it's expressed is so well that it impacts you in a different way. Okay, let's go back to a couple episodes ago, where we reviewed King's Kaleidoscope versus Chris Tomlin. King's Kaleidoscope, wonderful, outstanding artistic expression of worship, brings to light things that I have personally never worshipped God with. I think the second song is probably a great example, where the second song is based off of Matthew 6, where Jesus is talking about, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be provided for you. Most of the song is scripture, but the song is so musically good that it brings this point out in ways that it wouldn't have been brought out had it just been the same four chords over and over and over again, with the most bland guitar tone and synth background, with the most stereotypical cliche, you fill in the blank. Then we had Chris Tomlin, who wants, to his credit, to praise and bring glory to God, but doesn't ever change up the way he goes about doing that. And it's stale, it's familiar. The truth that he sings in the songs does not impact me the way that the King's Kaleidoscope brings out the truth in their songs. The artistic expression directly correlates to the impact of the truth that they're trying to convey. So, Gosh, we can go on about that all
Yeah,
day
we
long.
can.
It's sad that we even have to talk about this. It's a sign that we are really in like the most anti-intellectual era of the church when conversations like this even need to be had. I'm not saying that this is, something that we've known for, the past 2,000 years and then just recently forgot, but the life of the mind of the believer and the self-awareness of how art affects us has been pretty much forgotten, which explains why we have really shallow, really bad music coming from Christians, and why some of the best music that moves and impacts us in so many different ways is coming from non-believers because they get it. Like they get it. They get that the art has power to impact you in ways that you can't be impacted by anywhere else, and they're impacting people because they're having great artistic expressions. And Christians have forgotten this. To quote Tim Keller to close it out, we need Christian artists because we are never going to reach the world without great Christian art to go with great Christian talk. Which, boom.
Boom.
Boom. I think that point really drives home how important it is that we as Christians be concerned about good art because we have the truth. We have Jesus Christ, the author and perfecter of our faith, and the faith that he has commanded the whole world to believe in. And we can't express that because we are handicapped in the way we express this beautiful truth. The vehicle for expression of that truth, we've allowed mediocrity and just generally bad art to become us, and we've had a hard time convincing and expressing that truth for the world to see. And I don't think until we have great artists with a great capacity and a great awareness of the truth coming forth and making music like that's gonna be a struggle for us, because it's not happening in the Christian market. I can guarantee you that. Unfortunately, it's oh my gosh. We could just go on and on and on about this. If you want to read the excerpt, like I said, we will put it on the website for you to read. Tim Keller's Why We Need Artists. It is excerpted from chapter 3 of It Was Good. A very provocative piece, a very thought-provoking piece. Obviously, a very emotional piece, as demonstrated by our response to this piece. I think we were both getting a little bit worked up on the truth that Tim Keller, in his excellent writing style, manages to communicate because he has a great way of artistic expression with the pen.
Oh,
yeah. We're at an hour and 8 minutes, so let's start wrapping this up. Brett, you got any recos for our wonderful listeners this week?
Well, off the top of my head, Tuesday, Dragon Age Inquisition comes out.
Okay.
And I'm definitely looking forward to that. Got it pre-ordered. Now, just warning, of course, it's a rated M game. There is a lot of mature content in it, but Dragon Age as a whole is a very good story. It's very in-depth, very customizable. You can do a lot of different choices that shape the world across all these different games. And for those of you who have already played the first two, just a heads up, this game will not import those saves. Instead, what you have to do is go online to Dragon Age Keep and log in with your Origin account, import your heroes, and then don't just leave it alone because it doesn't import all the decisions. You can further customize it from there. And then even if you haven't played the games, you can get on there and customize your own world state to be ready for Dragon Age Inquisition. You can have it as dark of a world as you want it, as light and hopeful as a world you want it, or something in between. It's very interactive, very in-depth, and I definitely applaud BioWare for coming up with something like Dragon Age Keep. So I guess this recommendation is for both Dragon Age Inquisition and Dragon Age Keep.
Okay. My reco is the TV show Airplane Repo. Have you ever seen Airplane Repo? It's on a Discovery Channel where these people who are behind on their payments for their yacht or their airplane, where they send out bounty hunters to go and repossess these planes. And these bounty hunters are like super sneaky, super cunning, and they're really creative as to how they just go in. They just go in, and they're some of them are trained pilots. They bring others. Sometimes they bring pilots with them. They'll go in and they'll steal the planes right out of the owner's nose, and they can legally do it. Like they can legally do that and get away with it, and sneak in, get the plane ready to go, get the plane out of there, and fly it away. And they're paid by these banks to legally do that. It's pretty cool. It's pretty. Definitely an adrenaline junkie show because they always get in like these really crazy situations. Like last night, the episode I was watching, they try to steal a a Cessna waterplane from this Louisiana bike gang head, and
Ooh.
yeah, and the head actually like comes after them. Like they before they're able to take off with the plane, like he comes after them, and it's just like this is intense stuff. Like, so yeah, I guess that's my reco for the week.
I'm surprised you didn't recommend something like Rock Around the Clock or Johnny Be Good to brag about your recent acquisition.
Okay. And we're going late as is, but I just got to say, I love my job because you always meet a bunch of interesting people. And I was doing a lady's house who she lost her husband and doesn't have any children, and so she's getting ready to downsize from her from her larger size house into something smaller, and she was giving away a lot of stuff or just trying to get it out of the house so she doesn't have to worry about it. And in the garage I found 2 crates of vinyl, and I didn't know what was in it, but I saw that it was a bunch of vinyl, and she was needing stuff getting rid of, so I said, I'll take this vinyl off your hands for you, and so she let me have it. Well, I get home later in the day and I start looking through it, and probably 40% of it is nothing but Jimmy Swaggart.
Yeah.
A lot of Jimmy Swaggart. And his Golden Gospel Piano, or all the other iterations of Jimmy Swaggart's musical career and his Southern gospel stuff. But I did find, I found a couple of gems of classical gems and other things, but I did find an original copy of Chuck Berry's Johnny Be Good. Sounds great. It's in pretty good condition. Bill Haley in the Comets, Rock Around the Clock, which I about melted when I saw that.
Oh my gosh, I am so jealous of you for that.
I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm holding this in my hand. And then I put it on, and it sounds great. I mean, it's not in perfect condition or anything, but it still is very listenable. Casey and the Sunshine Band, I found a Casey and the Sunshine Band album. I don't actually know the name of the album, but I know it's got Shake Your Booty on it.
Although I'm still depressed at the Handel's Messiah that turned out to be an empty box.
Oh my gosh, there was a box of Handel's Messiah, and I saw that when I first saw it, and I was immediately, like, heck yeah, Handel's Messiah. That's one set I don't have, and there was nothing in it.
It was very depressing.
It was terrible depressing. Also found a Nat King Cole album, which our other roommate Grant was really excited about that. Found a couple other gems too. I found a Disco Disney album where they take Zippity Doodah, It's a Small World After All, and a bunch of other like really classic Disney songs and gives them disco treatments, and it's actually like really good. Like
Interesting.
They do some really awesome disco covers of these songs. Found Broadway recorded soundtracks of Sound of Music, My Fair Lady, and Fiddler on the Roof, which
heck yeah.
And a couple other smaller things that I was just a little bit interested in. So as far as statistically going, I mean most of the set was a wash. I mean most of it is Jimmy Swaggart, and I have absolutely no interest in Jimmy Swaggart. But the fact that I found both Johnny Be Good and Rock Around the Clock,
you can't find originals of those anymore. You just can't.
Yeah, that's I mean, you might find re-releases or updated versions of it, but I mean, this is like original, and it's still in pretty solid condition. So those instantly became like the 2 like centerpieces of my final collection. So wow, we were definitely going a lot longer in this episode than we thought. We thought that this would be a shorter episode, but
but it's a good episode. I really like this episode.
Yeah, it's a great episode. Thank you, Brett, for taking time out of your schedule for doing this here silly show with me.
No problem. I definitely enjoy this, especially getting to cover this Why We Need Artists article. It was definitely a really good talk.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And thanks to you listeners for listening. I will say that we have been doing this now for about 2 months, and depending on the streams that we'll get for this particular episode. We will hit 500 plays in 2 months, which is definitely a pretty awesome accomplishment, at least as far as I'm concerned. We had the best listening week as far as number goes this past week. I think we had about 100 plays overall this week. So it's definitely been a really, really good week for that. So thank you for listening, and please feel free to send us any feedback or comments or anything that you want to let us know, whether it's something you want us to do better or something you wish we would do or wish we wouldn't do. Please let us know. We're thankful that you guys listen and that you guys seem to be liking it, and we'll definitely take any of your feedback to heart. I do always want to take time at the end of every episode, of course, to mention the great gospel of Jesus Christ, which we have been given such incredible promises in the gospel. We have been made heirs with Christ. We have been adopted into the family of the triune God. Our sins have been forgiven, completely free of anything that we have done or anything we haven't done, solely by God's grace. And He has raised us from deadness in our trespasses to life in Jesus Christ, so that we can go and be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ to the world. And that is the truth that the world needs and the truth that the world wants, even though the world is dead in their sins and dead in their trespasses and are haters of God. And we have been given such incredible truth in the gospel, and God has entrusted us, finite, frail, broken, screwed up creatures, to go and tell others about this truth. And one of the ways that we do that is through art. We wouldn't have any point in doing this show. Another Ascending Lark it wouldn't exist. Tim Keller wouldn't be writing on the things he's writing about if it weren't for the gospel. The gospel is foundational to everything that we do, and it impacts every area of our lives because we are now under the lordship of Christ in every area of our life, including our artistic expression. And He has empowered us, given us the desire, and given us the ability to make the best art that we're able to make. And some of you, that means writing symphonies. Some of you, that just means writing a song that you only play to yourself in your bedroom because, well, you know.
Yeah.
But God has given us these desires to express ourselves and to express the truths of the gospel, which is the truth that this world needs and the truth that we are commanded to go out and say. So yeah. Good stuff as always. If you want to contact us, as always, you can get in touch with us an email at anotherasscendinglark@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at Another Ascending Lark. You can hit us up on Twitter at AALblog. You can find us, of course, on the website at anotherasscendinglark.com, where, again, I know I've said this before, we will post all the articles that we talked about on the show. We will post the excerpt or link to the excerpt that we read from, and I'll probably go ahead and put an embed of Mirror of Souls in there, just so that you can listen to it and read the lyrics, or if that fancies you, or you could just go buy the song. It's only like 99 cents for a 22-minute long song. So I'm Austin.
And I'm Brett.
If you are one of our Amarillo Panhandle area listeners, stay warm. Stay safe driving on the roads, or just don't drive at all. That's probably the best idea.
Yeah.
Hopefully both of us can go to work tomorrow, because it doesn't look like the snow is stopping.
Yeah.
So if you're not a Panhandle listener, and if there's not snow on the ground, then none of that applies to you. But to every one of you, regardless of where you are, we hope you have a great week, and check back in next week.